1, 2, 3. Welcome to She Rocked It. This is the place where ladies are talking about the ways we're blazing our trails and the things that put the wind in our sails. Hey, it's Karen from She Rocked It. This conversation came from our Instagram Live interview series, so it may sound a little different than a regular podcast, but we really didn't want you to miss this incredible conversation. And if you aren't already, be sure to follow us on Instagram at She Rocked It. Enjoy and get ready to rock. Hey, rock stars. Thanks for tuning in to the She Rocked It podcast here on our YouTube channel. And if you haven't already, I would love it if you hit subscribe and even better, leave a comment and let me know what you think of the podcast so far. It's been awesome to hear your responses already. And today we have an incredible conversation with Julie Slick, a true rock star and a virtuoso bass player who has toured around the world with the Adrian Belew Power Trio, with the Crimson Project featuring members of the iconic band King Crimson, and also with her own band, EchoTest. And Julie's going to tell us what it's been like to blaze a trail as a woman rock star in the music industry and how she got her start in her hometown of Philadelphia at the School of Rock, which was founded by Paul Green. Soon after she got started picking up the bass, she found herself on stage with the likes of Stewart Copeland from The Police, Alice Cooper, Ann Wilson from Heart, and many others. So without further ado, let's hear how Julie Slick rocks it.
So why don't you tell us actually a little more about how you kind of just describe yourself and what you do. And I know this past year was probably kind of an odd year for a musician. So maybe what you've been up to of late. Yeah.
Well, that's like, a lot. In the last year, not much has gone on, obviously. The world has been really shut down, but that's been kind of good. It's been kind of a nice reset. I've been touring with Adrian Belew since 2006, and especially like in the previous 6 years before quarantine, I was a nomad and just like traveling all around the world, basically simulating tour. So if I wasn't on tour with Adrian or Crimson Project, I was doing my own shows with EchoTest, everywhere around the world. So
this has been like a huge change for you this past year, because you are famously a nomad. So then having to just be planted for the past year was probably hard, I would imagine.
Yeah, it was hard, but not really. Like at the same time, I was really exhausted. So I really needed like to just relax and just, and it's been nice, because also I think it's important to take time away from music and, being creative in that field, in order to get that like fresh inspiration, it's, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves in every industry, especially the music industry, to just work.
That's a great point. I'm from Philly. I know you're originally from Philly. And as I recall, you kind of got your start in the School of Rock there. And tell us a little bit about how that began for you, and also what inspired you as a young woman to pick up music and then, obviously pick up the bass.
So before the School of Rock, I was about 10 or 11 years old when my dad has this like amazing guitar collection in Fairmount, in, this small little row house in Philly, like just guitars lined up everywhere.
Got it.
And so there's like over 30 guitars still in the house. And my brother was like a drummer out of the crib. We're only a year apart. So he was already like drumming from the get-go. And I would just like tinker around different instruments. And then finally, one day when I was like 10 or 11, I looked over at the bass and I just realized like, that seems easier. It's only got 4 strings. I can play one note at a time. I'm shy. I don't have to like do big crazy solos or play chords, which is funny because I play chords and solos on the bass now. And then my mom kind of challenged me and said, well, don't you think that's like more of a masculine instrument? And don't you think like that would be more hard for like a girl with the big thick strings? And of course that just lit a fire under my butt to want to go further with it.
I love that. You took that as a challenge.
Of course. Like, I'll show you.
I love it.
Because that was always the thing for me growing up, like, as far as like, if it was something that, boys did or, was more masculine, like to me, why did it matter? If it was just something that I was interested in and wanted to do, then why not do it? Why should I let that, gender thing like become a barrier, or an issue? So fast forward to a year later, my brother started getting, pretty good at the drums. I was, just plunking around on the bass, not really just taking lessons from my dad, learning Cream songs. This is a fretless bass, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I wasn't that good, but I was trying. And then my brother had this friend Spencer who was taking lessons from this guy, Paul Green, and he was getting pretty good at the guitar. My parents noticed. And so they signed me up for lessons with Paul. He was starting this, quote, school of rock, and he only had one other bass student. So I thought, oh, this is going to be sweet. Like, if he's going to be doing these shows and I'm playing bass, I get to play like half the show. So I thought that was another benefit to playing bass.
I love it.
Yeah.
So you just and good job, Mom, for getting you in there too. And
exactly.
That's amazing. You just said something a moment ago about, perceptions of women playing the bass or not, or doing different things. I just want to point to a statistic that I just read about women in the music industry. It's from USC Annenberg's Inclusion Initiative. Yeah. Women account for 21.6% of artists in the industry, songwriters only 12.6%, and producers 2.6%, Julie. So the truth of the matter is women are highly underrepresented in the music industry. I don't have to tell you this. How have you gotten the courage to kind of raise your musical voice? And, that way we always ask this question about what gave you the courage to raise your voice, but I think for you, it's really raising your bass, so raising your musical voice. Yeah. What gave you the courage to kind of persevere as a woman with all these dudes, really, around you all the time?
It was just always, Paul had always, and my parents, of course, too, was just hammered in our heads, like, it doesn't matter what anybody else says, don't listen to those people that are just jealous, just, it's like that cheesy, cliche, like there's nothing you can't do if you put your mind to it kind of thing. But it's kind of true. Like, it was pretty unreal. Yes, I recognize that I was extremely lucky to get a phone call to be in Adrian Belew's band 6 years after discovering him and becoming a huge fan, super fan at the age of 14. But at the same time, I worked my butt off, and, of course, people would try to shut me down along the way, and have still, even after getting this dream gig, of course I run into people that, it's not to say that respect is warranted, but you run into these situations in live gigs, where you might run into a sound technician that doesn't necessarily listen to what you have to say, or might assume you're the merch person because you're the woman walking into the venue, or it's rough, as you said, we're grossly represented in the industry, but of course that doesn't mean, of course, how many artists out there are women, that, maybe are too afraid to, try to.
I'm so glad that you obviously kept going and that you're here and you could share the journey with us. And when I got to see you live, actually it was in Pennsylvania, the Sellersville Theater, you are truly worshipped. When you're on stage, people love you. They are screaming for you. And it is so, as a woman myself, it's so exciting to see the love and appreciation you get. Even in the chat room right now, you're getting so much love. And from the, chat, I don't know if you can see the comments. Yeah. People are just sending so much love for you. So tell me a little more about, your journey in terms of any women along your journey. Was there any mentor, or were there any mentors or women who kind of inspired you or gave you that kind of, safety net, or keep going, or not so much, along the way? Was it actually men who also just gave you a great mentoring?
It's funny because along the way, in my earlier years, it would definitely, I would say it was mostly men. Just in the School of Rock, there weren't a lot of women around. There were other female students, my own age. But, my teachers at school, but that was not really, that wasn't part of my musical. That was more the academic side of things. So yeah, I would just have to say it was mainly my mom was my main inspiration.
Yeah. You'd be surprised how many women answer my mom when I ask this question. So yay, Mom. I think Mom's even tuning in. Hi,
so Mom. I'm getting bonus points.
Yes, that's right. Amazing. No, I think that, if mom is supportive, if parents are supportive of an unconventional path of an artist, a nomadic artist, I think that's actually really huge, because I know some parents can kind of, put the lid on it, and that's the end of that story. So that's beautiful. I love that. And they, I'm sure, come to get to see you at so many performances over the years. They've got to be there along your journey.
Oh yeah, yeah. They've come on tour with us and have done like the merch duty and things like that. So, and I'm hoping that they can do that again soon. Now that they're both going to be retired. So, come out on tour.
I love it. So, and yes, obviously we're She Rocked It and we're focusing on, women's paths and so forth. So I would ask also in terms of, your musical style, you're skilled not only as a bass player, but with electronics and pedals and all these things. How do you think being a woman affects your playing and your, kind of your approach, let's say, to the work that you do? And of course, with your own band, EchoTest, I would think you're able to really raise your creative voice in an even stronger way, perhaps with your own collaborators. So how do you think being a woman impacts your technique and approach?
In a band setting, like in a more like, personal, like relation, because really that's where it comes into play. I think, what energy it brings, to have like an all male band or an all female band or, both. The dynamic definitely shifts, when there's a woman in the band. Guys might say things like, oh, we can't use as much, locker room talk if there's a girl around, or, we have to be more polite.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny.
More respectful, perhaps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But also I've been in situations where they specifically hire women to belittle them on stage, which is very interesting.
Interesting, really? Just to kick their asses kind of on stage a little bit?
Yeah, kind of like, it's very weird. And it's,
Got it. Wow. And how do you feel about, I mean, you're obviously ass kicking as a bass player, so no matter what, you're like doing amazing stuff, but you're saying like in the conversation kind of on stage, just to
don't make me angry, I'll start shredding.
Oh, got it. I see. Interesting. This is so interesting to hear, the behind the scenes. And by the way, you're in your 30s, I believe, right?
Yeah, mid-30s now.
Mid-30s. I'm saying that's amazing because over the years you've played with, I mean, if I can just name a few artists, I said Adrian Belew. I want to say Danny Carey from Tool. Gosh, Les Claypool. Give me some of the other artists that you've collaborated with over the years, and maybe like what's one favorite memory or story you might want to share from one of these collaborations?
Well, I mean, through like the School of Rock, we got, to promoting the movie, I got to play with Jon Anderson from Yes and Stewart Copeland from the Police and Alice Cooper. Played on Schools Out with Alice Cooper and Stewart Copeland at the same time. That was pretty epic. That's that's a pretty awesome story.
Were you just pinching yourself? Like, I'm from School of Rock to actually playing with the real guys. Like,
yes, I was. I was like 19, about to be 20 years old.
Wow.
Like flown to LA, like playing with these guys. Like,
incredible.
Yeah.
You graduated from that school really fast, like immediately.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I'm actually in the band for real.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, pretty much, yeah.
God, I could ask you so many questions about your career, but I do want to ask, going back to that statistic I mentioned earlier about how few women actually take the road that you've taken. If you had your way and you could kind of open up the doors to more women, like what would that look like? How do you think it would be possible, based on your experience in the industry, for more women to get in the door, to take that path? What do you think?
I think we just need to help each other out. Like, think about each other first. Don't just hire, hire, you can hire men, but like, think about, what would it be like maybe to work with, more women in a project, or, just be more mindful, because it is so easy to just forget that kind of thing. And we really need to support each other, because it's so easy to just, that's another thing I was going to say is like, I grew up, pretty competitive, and that's why I think I'm, as good at bass as I am. But I think there's something to be said about like the competition that we put on each other as women, and like, oh, she's flat, or she doesn't look, she's not dressed right, or, I think we can be really harsh.
Yeah, that's an interesting point to raise
with each other. So I think we not only need to, help each other out, get each other gigs and things like that, recommend each other for work, but also like think about things like that, like be more supportive of each other, because there's enough. Exactly.
There's enough room for everyone. Everyone gets lifted up. Yeah. And thank you so much, Julie. I know how busy you are, and I just adore you, and I'm so thrilled to get a window into your perspective on this as a rock star in the industry, as a woman bass player, pioneering your path. And I know you're going to continue to rock it. And I just want to leave everyone with this question and leave you. You're welcome. Yeah. Thank you. If you could leave us with one tip so that we can rock it in our careers and our callings, like what is the one tip you would leave us to rock it in our respective careers? Yep.
Basically what I said earlier, just like don't listen to the haters and like all the naysayers and like people that try to just, set up those brick walls. Like just, if you really want something, like just go for it. What the heck? Why not go for it?
Well, I'm so grateful that you've gone for it and you're going to continue to rock it on so many stages. And Julie, thank you so much again for joining us. And She Rocked It. It's been amazing to see you. And
good to see you,
continue to root for you. Bye now. Bye. Thanks again. Bye.
Thanks so much for tuning into the She Rocked It podcast. I'm your host, Karen Gross. This episode has been produced by Tori Marchioni and Jake Siegelbaum, with audio engineering by Teng Chen. The She Rocked It theme song is by Karen Gross and Tim Motzer. I invite you to join us on Instagram at She Rocked It and join our Rockstar network at SheRockedIt.com. We hope you'll add your voice to the conversation, because at She Rocked It, we are dedicated to raising the volume on women's voices. She rocked it.